let's speak to you, Sangeet. I mean, theoretically, we do know what we need to do to win, but can you talk us through some of the real-life challenges and opportunities that are posed by these ecosystem-centric operations and this new way of doing partnerships?
Absolutely. So we heard Kent talk about a lot of the factors that are needed to succeed as a platform organization. What I want to frame those ideas within is the idea that fundamentally, when we talk about ecosystem-centric businesses, we are operating as part of a much larger ecosystem of connected entities, and that operating in that model requires fundamentally new mindsets. It requires fundamentally new trade-offs that need to be managed, and it requires fundamentally new ways of managing risk. So if I take a few examples over here, the first thing to think about is when you're in an ecosystem-centric business, you need to have a right to sit in the middle. What exactly gives you that right? Because you could say you want to be a platform organization and you want to create this single point of serving the entire ecosystem, but your partners may not really agree. They may want to be the platform organization themselves. So what gives you that right to sit in the middle? And we've seen many businesses face this challenge when they go down this path. Even Google, when it started Android, had a lot of problems getting Amazon and Samsung and others to follow its bidding. And eventually Google negotiated or out-negotiated them because it owned critical components like Google Maps, and that allowed it to negotiate power away from some of these organizations and sit in the middle of the ecosystem. So you need to think about what's your right to sit in the middle of the ecosystem when you're in such a business. The second thing to think about is how do you assess risk in a model when you are in the middle of an ecosystem? What are the types of audits that you need to have? What are the types of continuous metrics that you need to capture about different stakeholders and how they interact with you? How can you create a continuous due diligence mechanism implemented into your APIs so that you're constantly validating the right of every stakeholder to be part of your ecosystem while you ensure you are in a position to guarantee safety to all stakeholders? And the third thing to think about, with your right to sit in the middle and your ability to manage risk, is also how do you ensure that you incentivize all participants in the right way? And a lot of the challenges and opportunities are linked to incentives. When platforms extract too much value from their partners, the partners may build for some time, but they eventually move away. And there's always an opportunity for another platform to come in. And when they do not extract sufficiently, they end up becoming commoditized and they end up becoming a social service, and there's not enough value for the platform to continue growing. So you need to be very clear about how you manage those incentives as well.
Thank you, Sangeet. Andrew, let's just talk about what Sangeet's been talking about in terms of the context of all the different markets in Africa and what some of the challenges are and the opportunities of which you've experienced several key markets.
Thanks, Toby. Let me start off with opportunities. And I'll talk specifically about the East African region, which I'm most familiar with. East Africa remains arguably the most integrated region in Africa. We've seen the East African community having a vision of creating a very powerful and sustainable economic and political bloc that will drive GDP growth for the entire region. The population is young, it's entrepreneurial. We're talking about over 280 million people, of which 30% are in the urban areas, and the urbanization continues to grow. This young and entrepreneurial population is becoming increasingly technology savvy. We've also seen the creation of digital hubs by Google and Microsoft, and this has attracted pools of talent in the technology space into Kenya, and that talent is available for the region. We've also seen a marked increase in the intra-regional trade amongst the countries in East Africa. And we've also seen that in countries like Uganda and Kenya, foreign currency markets are fairly liberal. So the movement of foreign currency across borders is quite easy. We've also seen the availability of cloud infrastructure, which allows for scalability. I mean, if you look at the work that we've done in payments, that was referred to, I think, earlier by Chris, only 5% of the opportunity can be serviced by current infrastructure today. But the massive opportunity which remains untapped, and a platform business model can facilitate the creation of value, is in the 95% that we are not able to capture today. And that's where I believe the real opportunities. The challenges remain largely logistical, whether it's physical or technology, connectivity. But we believe that a platform business would facilitate the exchange between the consumers and the producers, as mentioned earlier. Thank you.
It's a really good summation of the opportunities of this very active East Africa community. And what I'm pleased to hear is that there are more examples of opportunities than hindrances. That's a very good sign.